Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dave, and we're the IB English guys. And today is video number 3 of our series where we're looking at a higher level essay from start to finish. Our first video, we looked at the line of inquiry, and second video, we brainstormed and we outlined. And now we're ready to write, Andrew.
Mr. Giles, this is the time where we take all that hard work we did. We've been in our text. We've done a little bit of research. We've really thought deeply. And then let's put this into action, Mr. Giles. Let's write that introduction today. What do you say?
That's great. I love it. So again, let's just review the line of inquiry that we wrote for this particular paper. Again, this is a critical pillars of our essay. This is how it reads. How does Ato Fugard utilize the conventions of avant-garde theater in his drama Sizwe Banzi is Dead to convey the struggle for identity for Black South Africans during apartheid?
Now, folks, the highlighting key was articulated very clearly in earlier videos, but to pay attention, you want to really focus on the rich idea in the green. And of course, we're working with the conventions of avant-garde theater again.
Yeah, examiners like this. They like to be able to read the line of inquiry and know exactly where the paper's going. And this gives you your direction. This is your steering wheel. This is going to take you to a really good paper.
Now, Mr. Giles, in our last video, you did a lot of brainstorming and a lot of outlining, a lot of thinking. Did you get down? You can't use all of that, correct?
I couldn't use all of it. I actually had to strip it down because once I started writing, I realized that I couldn't write 5 body paragraphs sufficiently. So
not
I had
within
to cut one of
1,500.
them.
Yeah, 1,500 words is not going to allow that.
Yeah,
right?
so I cut one of them.
What did you end up with in the end in your rudimentary outline? Take us through that.
Sure. So I first wanted to talk about improvisation and how that connects to the sense of the real world. So you can see my topic sentence start taking shape. I've got this sort of rich sort of convention of avant-garde theater connected to the real world. Then I'm going to talk about the minimal set and the transitions and how that conveys the bleak reality of Black identity.
It looks like your third idea, you want to go after that exaggerated storytelling, thinking about the multiple roles in the play and how that links to that role and that attempt to survive in apartheid.
Yeah, that's
and then
right.
Your fourth idea, I know this is your favorite, you like that breaking of the fourth wall, right? And how that really is a reaction against oppression.
That's right. So that's my rudimentary outline, just to give you an idea of how I structured the paper. If you want to look at the more detailed outline, that was in a previous video.
So I feel like you're ready to write your introduction now, Mr. Dawes. Do you feel ready?
I do feel ready. I want to mention one thing. You don't have to write the introduction first, but for us, we decided to write this introduction, because it makes sense. Again, you can write the body paragraphs first and go back and write the introduction. That's fine.
Yeah, well said. Once you have your idea formulated, you have your strong thesis, you can really approach that in any order. But we're starting with the intro. Mr. Jaws, there are many types of papers to write. There's tons of different kinds of writing. What do you think what are some of the elements necessary for a strong introduction for a higher level essay?
Yeah, I think introducing the topic in some way, introducing in a creative way is a nice way to start your paper. Again, we want to be careful with that. We want to think about the topic maybe it's something about the text itself. We want to think about that. I think there's sometimes we want to think about defining terms in our paper that we're using that are central to our play. I think that's really wise.
Now, Mr. Giles, I noticed you've written preferably with sources. Can you talk about that a little bit? This use of secondary sources.
Yeah,
I
think if we're defining a term and we're thinking about, well, I need to find out how do I define avant-garde theater, for example. I need to investigate that. I think it's probably smart to consult a source and put that source in our definition.
But folks, please keep in mind you do not need secondary sources in the higher level essay. This is a major misunderstanding that we believe students and teachers have. Mr. Giles has made a conscious and deliberate choice to include a couple of sources because he wants to define avant-garde theater. However, when he's talking about the play itself, he's not consulting secondary sources.
Yeah.
This is coming from Mr. Giles.
That's right. I cautiously added that source, and I included that source because I felt it was really important to establish, and also just to make sure my reader understands that I understand avant-garde theater. That was important to me.
Yeah, I noticed another thing you're adding in this introduction is you're looking at a bit of context and historical background. Of course, this paper is rooted in 1970, is that correct?
Yeah, 1972.
1972, right? So you want to provide a bit of context. It's not a history paper, but just enough context to spring into that literary discussion of those rich ideas.
That's right. And then lastly, of course, we want to conclude with our line of inquiry. This is our thesis, this is our argument, this is what's going to drive our paper.
Okay, let's take a look at the sample introduction that you've written, Mr. Giles. There's a lot of things going on here. It's well lit up. Talk about some of the choices you made and why you made those decisions.
Okay, well, the first thing I did is just to have this sort of a very sort of concise, interesting hook about outrageous circumstances inspire atypical art. This is essentially what avant-garde theater is, and the outrageous circumstances are apartheid. So again, this is my way of introducing the topic, connecting to unconventional theater.
I see that, and of course we see the strong links in orange to the playwrights, and we get a little bit of that context in the purplish color as well. First performed in Cape Town, we have oppressive apartheid regime starting in the late 19th century, and so on and so forth. Again, this is not a rich history paper, but it's just a bit of context to anchor the reader into the context so they can interpret and understand the paper.
Yeah, and so when I was writing the introduction, I wrote that one sentence about avant-garde theater techniques and how that conveys the idea of identity during apartheid, and then I just felt like I need to define for myself and also for my reader, what does that mean? So I went and I did some research, and I found an interesting quote about how avant-garde theater is about opposing and going against the grain, and it goes counter to his time. I really like that short little snippet, so I included that because the idea is that it goes against the time, and this is what they were going against apartheid.
Yeah,
so I thought that was important.
No, I think it's a great choice. I probably wouldn't expect to see any other citations in your paper after this. Maybe
And I didn't.
You didn't. Okay,
I didn't.
Right,
That was
so,
it, and I just included that.
Yeah, the rest is coming from you. Why don't you go ahead and take us down to that thesis that you've crafted, Mr. Giles? Maybe read that aloud.
Yeah, again, I have to take my line of inquiry and turn that into a statement. So this is what I wrote. Set during apartheid, Fugard's play exposes the detrimental effects of discriminatory systems on Black identity. Fugard, Kani, and Deshona utilize techniques of avant-garde theater, such as improvisation, minimal transitions, exaggerated storytelling, for the purpose of conveying the struggle for identity and for Black South Africans during apartheid.
Mr. Giles, now that's a fantastic thesis statement. And as an examiner, it's very clear where this paper's going. I see the words improvisation. I would expect that to be body paragraph 1. I see the minimal transitions and stagecraft. That could be body paragraph 2. Again, it's just really setting a nice roadmap, not only for the paper, but for anybody who reads this paper as well.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I think, again, it was, to be honest, easy to write once I had that good line of inquiry. Now we want to transition and we want to briefly talk about the conclusion. The conclusion is included in this video just so you can see how we wrap the paper up.
We like to think about the connectedness between the introduction and the conclusion. We think that they have similar aspects, and we call them the bookends of the paper, and they mirror one another in many ways.
Yeah, they do. So we want to, again, think about a few components. We want to go back to that line of inquiry. We want to perhaps evaluate the effectiveness of the literary aspect that we talked about. And again, making that reference outside the text. This, I think, comes up in paper 1, it comes up in paper 2.
Mr. Giles, it just comes up in good writing.
Yeah.
This is what we do as writers. We make a claim, we articulate our claim, and we reach out and show larger implications. This is what writers do.
That's right, because these texts relate to the real world. It's about the human condition, so we want to think about that, and then we want to end with a flourish. So let's quickly just talk about what you see in the conclusion.
Yeah, I would like to read the paragraph, if you don't mind.
Okay, let's do it.
Sizwe Banzi's death echoes the absurdity of the political crisis it addresses by breaking the rules of conventional drama. These choices immerse audiences in the grim realities of Black South Africans and provoke them to confront the consequences of apartheid. In his final moment with Buntu, Sizwe remarks, "Our skin is trouble." Fugard's politically aware themes remain just as relevant today, even after the end of apartheid in 1991, as they explore ways in which humans can use superficial differences to justify inhumanity. From the recent Black Lives Matter movement to the rights of immigrants in Europe to the ethnic cleansing in Myanmar, there is no shortage of examples of the struggle for identity. Modern audiences can thus learn a great deal about this struggle through Fugard, Kani, and Deshona's play, as it challenges the status quo and runs counter to its time. Let me flip the question to you, Mr. Giles. What do you like about the introduction that you carefully crafted?
Well, I just wanted to talk about that, breaking the rules. That's what avant-garde theater is, and I wanted to really connect with that sort of rich purpose of the play. And this grim reality, and it's really a hard play to read and a hard play to watch, but I think it is such a powerful thing.
Yeah,
that quote, I just had to put that in there.
Yeah, I see that.
It's the title of my whole paper.
It's the title of your paper. I really, really appreciated how you did that as well. And I, as a person who not only loves literature, loves to read essays, but you made that strong connection to the real world, talking about Black Lives Matter and immigrants and ethnic cleansing in Myanmar. These really do focus on those essential elements of identity, and it inherently links this play in the real world together.
So that's trying to end with a flourish. So I think, I think when we write our introduction, if we have some kind of interesting elements or something creative in our introduction that we can go back to, that makes for a nice paper because that's that circular structure. And we're not just kind of rehashing the paper. I didn't rehash anything.
No,
I didn't want to rehash
you
the thing.
You never
I'd
want to
already
repeat.
written it.
No, you synthesize ideas and reach out for further implications.
Yeah.
Mr. Giles, what's the next step for our students? What do you recommend they do now?
Okay, we're going to talk about body paragraphs because the body paragraphs is where we really do our heavy lifting. This is where we're going to show our analysis. This is where we're going to kind of hit all the criteria and really show deep thinking.
So folks, please join us for the next video. We are almost there. We're taking you through the whole process, HLE start to finish. See you next time.
See you next time.